And we have quite a few more slides left. Some of them are going to be more involving. So I want to make sure you have two devices. One is your cell phone and a computer. If you are just using one and you don't have a cell phone, you can definitely look at the information later and try to utilize it on your cell phone as well, because some of those apps are a lot easier to use on your cell rather than on the computer. But I will try my best to show you the Instagram, how that is done. But Instagram is definitely, for example, one app that is a lot more friendly for people to use on their phones rather than on a computer. So before we go into the practicality of things, we have a couple of more aspects just to cover, and then it's going to be more hands-on. So presenting your vision, we already presented that, but the key point here is presenting your vision not out of desperation, but out of excitement of what God is doing. So don't beg people for anything. Tell them what you're doing, how you're doing it, and be excited, and you know, just let it go. You know, don't ask for a lot of, don't put a lot of pressure on them. Don't judge the person by their outward appearance of how they're looking, because I've had several sponsors. For example, when I had an office in Seattle, people would come into the office from different churches, different places. There was a lady that came in and she looked like she had been on the street. She had driven, come over on a public transportation, had plastic bags in her hands, and looked like she had been on the street begging. So people around me were treating her as a beggar. They were very basically disrespectful towards her. But I saw her and I invited her in. We were doing a special class. She wanted to be a part. And then she said, well, honey, what is your greatest need right now? And I said, well, we actually just opened this office and the rent is $1,000 a month. And I know I have the money for this month, but we don't have it for next month. And so that's my biggest need right now. It's for the next month's rent. And she says, well, hold on a second. Let me write you a check. She pulls out a checkbook and writes me a check for $1,000 for next month's rent. So all that to say, you cannot judge the person by their outward appearance. She has been a sponsor with us for a long time. She's still with us. So that's one thing that I have learned. And then don't talk out of poverty mentality as though you don't have anything, or don't talk out of a mentality that you have everything and you don't need anybody. So there has to be a balance. Then overcome laziness and become self-disciplined, have action plan. We talked about it over and over. Here's your little slide with the emphasis on it. And basically the bullet point that says there are only 7 days in the week and tomorrow is not one of them, because tomorrow never comes. We have to begin with today. What are we learning today that we can start implementing, rather than I'll learn this tomorrow and then tomorrow is full with something else. Get past the fear of rejection. I cannot tell you how important that is. And that is something that Bishop also mentioned right before break, of how many women don't know how to ask or don't want to ask because they're afraid of being rejected. And support is always going to involve risk, is going to involve stepping out of our comfort zone, is going to involve just putting yourself out there and knowing that some people are not going to like you, and that is okay. But not to be afraid of their rejection and stopping what you're doing. You just keep on moving forward. When somebody says, I don't believe in your ministry, that's all right. I don't have to validate myself to them. I know what I've done and what I've accomplished. And so for the longest time, I would take these negative words that would be spoken over me, or somebody would write me a mean letter just because they had some anger problems and they're deciding to write me about it, or you know, you just never know what the person is dealing with and they take it out on you. And when I was in my early 20s and 30s starting out, had no idea that there are going to be mean people out there. I thought everybody's going to love me. No, they are not going to all love you. And that's okay, because the ones that really love you are going to be with you in the long run. And the ones that are always going to find somebody to criticize about you, don't worry about them. There is a great quote, I think by Theodore Roosevelt, that says the man in the arena. It's actually quite lengthy, but basically the bottom line in that whole quote is, it's not the critic that counts, is the person who is with you in the arena, that is sweating and fighting the battle with you, that counts. So don't pay attention to all of your critics. Focus on the ones that are fighting the battle with you in the arena. Slide number 38. I love the quote from our bishop. People try to raise support by what they're going to do. We raise support by what we have already done. And that means we got to capture every opportunity. I carry brochures with me in my little briefcase. This is how they look like. Little brief information about our organization. I carry business cards with me. And when people say, well, how can we get a hold of you? Well, guess what? I have a business card. Here it is. And then I always say, could I always have yours? And if they say, well, I'm sorry, I don't have a business card on me, I'm like, oh, that's okay. We have phones these days. Do you mind just entering your name and contact information in my phone? And when you do it with a smile, it works. So I don't just hand out cards randomly, especially if I'm with the person sitting next to me on the plane. I hand them with the purpose that I'm going to connect with this person later. Now, don't take it too far out, because some people don't have good intentions in wanting to connect with you, especially when I was single. So they will not be getting my card either. So obviously use wisdom as to who you're speaking and how you're talking to them. Speak with confidence about your vision and about your ministry. We talked about that. And if we don't believe in who we are and in ourselves, why would anybody else believe in us? The importance of excellence on the next slide, Babette mentioned a little bit earlier, and this is about excellence in a way of we present ourselves through our publications, through our online social media, and also videos, the way we look in general. Look your best, be a person of excellence. The fact or condition of excelling and surpassing goodness is the definition of it. So why be excellent? Because God wants us to be excellent. Others will know when you're functioning in a way of excellence. Learn to be the person that raises the bar. I've lived in Seattle for about 11 years, almost 12. And when I moved there from the Midwest, everybody really loved to just not dress up. They're always wearing kind of earthly clothes and earthy colors, and not a lot of desire to dress up. And I show up in high heels, always dressed up. It made everybody really nervous, to the point that even my friends were telling me I need to calm down and stop dressing up so much. And I'm like, I'm not even dressing up. That's just my normal casual outfit. And guess what happened? They changed, because I wasn't going to change. So if they were going to be going shopping with me or meeting with me or anything else, they made a point to dress up. So you know what? Not everybody has dress up clothes, and that's not what the whole point here is about. But some people didn't even, like women especially that I'm talking about, they wanted to look better. It's just nobody was there to teach them. Nobody was there to give them tips on makeup and how to style their hair and how to put clothes together. So I saw a need, and I decided I'm going to meet it in the American culture in Seattle. I organized my friends. We went shopping at the store, told them how to put clothes together. I mean, we're still friends, and they still support me because I gave them something of value. So, this is exactly how we build partnership and we build people. We don't condemn them. We just take them to another level of excellence in their life. The next thing is challenge to be different, and that's, I always am gonna stick out and be different. I mean, even if I don't try to be different, I think I am in general, just because I have an accent in an American culture, which I forget that I have an accent, because in my head it doesn't sound like I'm talking with one. But then I hear myself on the videos and I realize I do have an accent and I need to improve certain things. You should have heard me 25 years ago when I first started out, couldn't even make a full sentence. So this has been a huge growth for me. And here you are already speaking English. You have absolutely no reason not to be able to do videos correctly, with grammar structure correctly, with expressing yourself with excellence. So continue to work on your purpose and to purify that presentation, because it will last longer, it will have longevity, and people in general gravitate towards excellence. I had set a goal as to what kind of people I also wanted to attract into my life. And when I'm on that level, then it's easier to attract business people. It's easier to attract people of influence. And if my vision was that I'm also a person who influences nations from the top down and not just from the bottom up in working with the orphans, but I wanted to influence people in the government, I wanted to influence people in high rankings in business, then I needed to adopt that kind of a skill and language and expand my abilities to make presentations to them. And it was scary. I was 35 when I started learning that. And it was because I needed to learn how to get and change policies in Bulgaria through the government to be able to help these kids not to be trafficked in every single day on that scale like it used to be. And so I'm not going to go into that whole story, but long story short, 2 years into it, we hosted the president of Bulgaria at that time. We hosted a group of 16 highly individual governmental representatives from the government of Bulgaria here in Seattle, Washington. We were helping them change law policies, helping them change the structure, how things are conducted in Bulgaria. But I would have never done it if I had thought to myself that I can change and adopt that kind of a language to speak on their level and to influence them. So that comes with time, it comes with preparation, it comes with diligence and perseverance, attention to detail, and you can develop those skills. They may not be a part of you right now, but when you walk through life and you have enough failures and enough experiences, you adopt the best out of that failure. Don't let the failure define you. Define that season of your life in the best way possible by looking at what did that season teach you. I call it invisible mentors. I actually had my book right here next to me all along, and I didn't see it when we were talking, called Blind Spot, but this is called Motivated by the Impossible, Recognizing Your Invisible Mentors. And my entire book talks about the different impossibilities that I was faced with and how they became my mentors. And so all of that to say, you don't achieve excellence just by trying so hard to be perfect. There is a difference between perfection in the next slide and excellence. And the perfectionism usually comes also from an attitude that is either low self-esteem or somebody that has always been telling you have to be perfect in order to be accepted. And so we adopt that cultural belief or family belief or whatever it came from into us, thinking that if I make everything perfect, then everybody is going to like me. No, the perfectionism is all about you. Excellence is all about you presenting God and knowing who you represent. And so when we have that in mind, we function in spirit of excellence. It takes the same amount of energy to produce something ugly than and also to produce something really amazing, because it's all about knowledge and how we're presenting that information. I know that I'm kind of flying through these slides, but I know that you already know most of this, so we're not spending a lot of time on it. So we're going to focus on the art of writing, because a lot of you here have asked questions or have had questions about what platforms to use for social media, for writing, how to write a presentation, what looks appealing, what doesn't. So when it comes to newsletters, in your handouts, in general resources, I've included several different slides with links of newsletters that are great and products that you can see online. So let's start with number one, appearance. A newsletter, in order to appear amazing, you either need to study a little bit of a graphic design or have a graphic person to help you with if you don't know how to do graphics, and especially if you're trying to do a newsletter on your own that it only contains text. I would immediately discourage sending out a newsletter with just a writing on it, unless it's a follow-up partners letter like what I do with our partners, but that is different. A newsletter needs to have pictures, needs to have a little bit of text, a lot of color, a lot of information that is important for the people to read about and have that creativity shine through. But at the same time, if it's printed, you got to remember, if it's printed just on a regular paper that's not really good looking and not very sturdy, people will throw it in the trash, because right now there's just a lot of high demand for quality. So I'm giving you here 3 websites that I have used in the past. The one that I use predominantly, and that would be every month, is gotprint.com. Usually for printing 1,000 newsletters, I select 1,000, but they usually send us about 1,200 to 1,300. They always include a lot more than what has been requested. And we've done it for 20 years with them, and we've always had extra. So I'm sending 1,010 or 1,020 a month at the moment. They come in glossy paper, 100-pound gloss. Now, Babette is going to be including her website as well, and they do a lot of printing and publishing also. So you can feel free to consider. They have compatible prices. I recently switched from Print to a mailing that is done in Tulsa, and because I was switching my mailing services and who was going to be doing my automated mail, because they do everything in-house. Now my newsletter gets printed there, gets folded on their machines. They include the envelopes that I provide, and then it gets printed with all of my mailing list on it for only $110 a month. So that's for about 1,000 newsletters every month, which I have found that to be the cheapest place as far as if you're doing bulk mailing of regular mail. And I am including that in a following slide in information as well. So on the next slide here, what to avoid when writing support letters. Writing only about yourself, and we talked about that. Nobody really wants to know what exactly you did all month and what food you ate. They don't want to know that your car broke down or that you're suffering with some chronic disease. You know, that is not what a newsletter is about and how to raise support, because they all have needs, and that is not a vision, that's you presenting a need. So do not write any of that. Nobody from my mailing list is going to know that I got married, because that I'm not going to be posting wedding pictures there. They're in a closed group, and I don't even post them on the regular Facebook posts. So I've selected my audience on purpose. So the same thing is here. You got to keep some things personal and some things for the whole world to know. The next thing is name dropping. Don't write a letter where you're including a whole bunch of names of famous people that you think are famous to you, because they may not mean anything to anybody else. And then people are wondering who is that person and why you're mentioning them. Then number 3, telling them all about your accomplishments. When I was younger, I really thought that that's the only way for me to gain everybody's support and respect, is by sitting there and telling them everything I accomplished. And it was so little in comparison to what I've done now. But I thought it was so big that I learned 150 new words, or that, I all of a sudden knew how to write in English. And I would be so excited sharing. And I think because I looked so young and so naive, people just supported me out of the fact that they felt sorry for me. Well, after you grow and mature, now nobody's feeling sorry for me. They think I am a multimillionaire, that I have all the money because here I am on TV and I have, followers, and I'm doing this and that. I am amazed at how wrong the perception of people has been. In the times when we don't have a lot of money, they still think I am doing amazing because I was just on a TV show. And you get looped with everybody else that's on the TV show that is raising a ton of money. And there you are, trusting God that somebody is going to tune into that station to hear what you have to say. So your accomplishments really don't matter, but the accomplishments of the organization do matter. So you always want to talk about what we have done as an organization, not what you have done to get that organization started. Then giving false promises. If you cannot meet a deadline, don't tell the people that in a month from now you're going to give them a video, or that you're going to call them, or that you're going to be promoting a new book if you haven't even written it. So false promises lead to nothing. Sharing unrealistic ideas, the same thing. A lot of young people do this mistake. They have unrealistic expectation of ministry and how people are going to respond, and therefore they share unrealistic ideas that don't meet anybody's need. So poor content, no diversity with pictures or video, especially if you're doing this online. Video is really important to include whenever you can, maybe in not every single publication, but nevertheless, emails that are more open include some kind of diversity in the content, clicked links, and pictures and video. Overbearing content. I'll show you a couple of newsletters in a minute, but just a lot of content. I've gotten letters that are 5 pages long, and I just look at it. I look for some kind of a bracket where the text stops and a new thought is presented, just to kind of see the headlines of what's happening. Overbearing content happens when you don't have enough space, when you're putting too much information, and you're not titling the aspects of what you're actually putting on there. Big titles, different fonts, different styles are going to be important. You'll see in a minute how that's done. Leaving out social media links or not connecting them properly. Very important before you send an email out to make sure that every link is connected to the right social media account, and to the right donation button, to the right page. I've had to test our links several times because unfortunately there are glitches in every system. And right now, for example, Constant Contact sent me a notification that they have a glitch in their system and their links are not working. So they're working on creating it and fixing it. Maybe it will be done in a few hours. But links are very important to connect, using the same subject line each time you send an email. And that is probably not going to be the best way to open your emails, because if people think, well, what's different this month? You always want to create different subject line pertaining to the topic that you're addressing that month in your email content. And that is specifically for social media and emails that are being sent out. But we're going to talk about a subject line in just a moment. Asking for money right away without people even having established trust, and they have no idea, and they just showed up on your mailing list, and you don't have a welcome letter, you don't have a thank you letter. You basically immediately send them, hey, we need money. No, that is actually what not to do. So those are mistakes to avoid making. On the next slide,
Betsy,
yes.
may I make an additional comment? That's such an important topic you've just covered. And I want to suggest sometimes people don't know how to judge these things in their content. I
Mm-hmm.
would suggest listen to yourself talk,
Mm-hmm.
because these very same mistakes are made in conversation. They talk about themselves, they talk about only their accomplishments, they name drop, they 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 talk without pausing. It's just one long paragraph of blabber, and they don't realize people have glazed over, they're not listening, they don't care.
Mm-hmm.
So if a person doesn't know where to start looking at their content, listen to themselves, observe the way other people engage in conversation, and you'll see the practices that don't work.
Yes, very good. Very good point. Thank you so much for adding that, because it helps me when I know certain amount of information. I don't always know what somebody is not going to know. So thank you, Bishop, for adding that point. Very important. What I have done as far as creating a subject is I look at what I have already written, and whatever I've repeated over and over in the letter, that's what I come up with as far as a subject line title. I think we have a quick question here that's coming through regarding email length. Yes, we're going to look at that in just a minute.
Okay, thank you.
So, newsletter pointers. Keep things clean. Number one, you need a lot of white space. Don't fill up every single thing on your newsletter. I'm gonna show you an example here. Make things personal, meaning always write as you speak and make it to one person, which would be you, in the you form and we form. Last month, you helped us raise funds. For example, what I'll say to somebody right now, raise funds towards the purchase of 400 more boxes for 400 families and children. And together we have been able to not only provide for their needs, but also for their spiritual needs, put smiles on the kids' faces, something like that, that engages them with you and with we together. Make things easy for the reader to read, to be quick, which means different fonts. Watch for typos, grammatical errors. Always ask somebody to proofread it. Vary and experiment with your story. Sometimes you can talk about a story from a third person, a second person, and from a first person experience, like what you've experienced. I have a person, she's a young girl. She started working with me when she was 12. She wanted me to disciple her and train her. Now she's 19. And she was number one in her class in grammar and spelling and creative writing. So she wanted to volunteer, and for all of these years she has been volunteering and writing for me different blogs. And so I love the fact that she can write the same story that I have from a third person and bring a different creativity and diversity into the story. So I don't always write every single story because I need somebody else's perspective, but I do monitor the story that has been written and help her sound like us as a part of the organization. Being consistent with your newsletters, decide if you're going to be sending a monthly newsletter, bi-monthly, quarterly, or once a year, or what you would be doing so that you're staying consistent. But if you're only going to do once a year newsletters, you have to be able to send out some cards, some other brochures, some other emails. You need to be connected. You can't just expect to send a newsletter for Easter and Christmas and have a full-time support base every single month, because people, believe it or not, they forget about you unless you're staying present in front of their eyes all the time. No matter how cute you think you are, they will forget you. And that is just the truth right there. So it's good to be reminding them that you're still alive, you still have a message, you're still here. So every month I'm somehow reminding everybody, I'm alive, God hasn't forsaken us, we're doing this no matter what. And then so we have uh, not always asking for money and always expressing a need. You gotta have diversity in your content, choosing your subject line carefully. So we're going to talk about that. Varying with pictures, picking close, clean pictures. If you look like you're in the distant and you look like a little dot in the picture and it's blurry, please do not include it, because that immediately removes trust from people to think that you're doing anything good. If the picture is just some randomness and you're just including it in the newsletter, please don't do it either. It has to be connected to the content of the newsletter. We're going to look up at some pictures and how to take pictures. That's coming up in the next slides. Give your readers something to look forward to. For example, if you're publishing a new product or doing something new, coming up with, even, it doesn't even have to be a book. It can be just a blog that you're going to be working on next month, or changing a page on your website. And you want to tell them, hey, next month we have a new fresh look to our website. Look forward to it. Look forward to sharing it. Make sure that you check it out. And then you give them a certain date when that's coming. That's always really good. They may forget about it, but that gives you the opportunity to remind them the next time you come up with your newsletter. Then utilize white space, meaning don't fill up the white space. Allow the letter to breathe. And Jennifer is a graphic designer. And anybody here that's on our line for class that does graphics will tell you right away that things need to breathe. I used to be of the idea that I got to put everything on there because people need to see how much we have done. And then, you know, that phrase, less is more. I've learned that, oh, if we just have one really good picture of a kid smiling, then that actually could tell the whole story of the rest of the kids. And then if you don't know what you're doing, hire a graphic designer. You know, I have a graphic designer. She's worked with me for years. And once again, she was a person whose husband had passed away at the same age that I was at the time, at 31. And she had just accepted the Lord, didn't know what to do. She was Bulgarian and living in America. And I said, I will disciple you, help you go through this grieving process. And 3 months into it, while we were working together, she said, I want to do something for you. I'm going to go and learn how to be a graphic designer so that we can work together. And she studied. She became a graphic designer 2 years later, and we have worked together for over 15 years now. And I am just saying, I don't always have the resources, but I attract the people, help them to get to another level in their thinking, and then they want to be a part. So there is no lack of people and no lack of resources in the kingdom of God. 51% of email recipients unsubscribe from the newsletters when they don't look good. That is a huge thing. 51%. That means half of your mailing list will basically unsubscribe if your newsletter is sent and it looks really bad. They want to feel how the paper feels. They want to know how sturdy it is. So all of that actually connects to the brain and the way we're used to thinking and viewing information. And so immediately tells them, oh gosh, that looks horrible. So don't send something horrible until you actually work in that excellent mode. And like I said, God print, you can print 100 to 250 business cards for $18, $20, with shipping $25. You know, they're not that expensive. Babette would tell you the same thing. They print great materials. I've done it with other companies as well over the years. So newsletter is important to look good. The next one is mistakes, best practices, and examples. The thing on top that I put that I don't want you to miss out because it's in a tilted area, never send a letter asking for money without permission. Because if you do that, for example, I use constant contact, what's going to end up happening is somebody can flag your account and tell constant contact that they receive a publication that they never had permission to receive. And so constant contact will send you several notifications before they close your account. A group of people that decided to do this to promote their business went online and took email addresses just from locations that they thought, oh, they would want to hear from us because we're new to the area and we want to just send a blast email. Do you know that they not only flagged their account, they closed them and they're not allowing them at all to open an account again with constant contact because it's creating a high risk and intrusion on privacy. So when you collect an email address, don't just add it to the email list without asking the person, would you like to receive an update from us? Because they may not want to. And then, Jen, do you have that website pulled up with the link? We're going to switch screens really fast. We have a few links that we're going to be showing. I think the website you guys can look up on how to optimize your newsletter, but I'm going to show you my newsletter in just a minute. Let's go to the next slide because that will kind of explain exactly what I'm talking about in best practices and mistakes. And then this particular link here is on the handout, so you can look at it a little bit later just for the sake of time.
Okay, so you don't want it?
No, let's just skip it just for time's sake.
Okay.
The next slide will definitely give you a clue of where we're going with this. So what not to do. I want you to observe these newsletters right here. These are not in your handouts because it was really not necessary to put them. But first of all, you have overcrowding, a ton of pictures, and layover of background pictures, mixture of several different fonts going on. This is definitely something not to do. On the next one, they're utilizing some white space, but all of their pictures are really smashed together and they're not color coordinated. They don't have an overall layout of the picture, and then random highlights that are selected, which if you're looking at that, you have no idea why is just that selected. Are they just asking for money, or are they giving me enough information about the organization? In the next slide, I've included my last newsletter. As you can see, we have a lot of pictures, but there is space for them to breathe. And then I've made the miracles born out of love in major points so that they can separate them and just, if they're just gonna read one sentence, might as well read that one that's separated with some brackets and with some text. So couple of things. If I'm raising funds for the Hope campaign, I want to include the systematic part even in the newsletter. So those two graphics may look like they're a repeat of my website and what's on my Facebook and what's on all the other social media. But that's how you establish the correct branding and the idea. People have to see something 5 to 10 and more times in order for them to actually remember it, because they're seeing constant content moving and pictures moving around when they're scrolling through. So when something stays consistent, they begin to remember it. So don't be afraid to include some of the graphics, not maybe every single month. I'm not going to include the same graphic next month, but we may include it in a way that still has the Hope campaign in it, but just in a little bit of a different dynamic of on the page. So consistency in color and between the websites, between your newsletter, between your graphics is very important, so that one month you're not producing something and everything is red and blue and white, and the next month it turned into orange and purple and pink. So if you stick to colors for this year that are predominant, and those are bright colors this year, like the ones that I'm using on my slides, a bright blue and orange and baby blue, all of those. These are bright colors, but they don't always match what's on my website. So I may include it in a newsletter like this to connect to my new campaign, but I'm not going to be using these colors for my main website because those are going to change next year. So when you go in a minute, I'll be going into my computer and sharing a screen. You'll see that our colors are a little bit different and they're more mellow because that's what represents us. Let's go on to the next slide. This is the picture taking tips for newsletters, reports, social media posts. So Jen, I believe you have the link for this one. Let's pull it up. And really quickly, we're going to go over it. If you scroll a little bit down, it gives you great examples of how pictures are taken and what to do. This link and PDF file I have as a handout for you that you can look later. But here is number one, create balance with grid lines. So this is basically when you're taking a photo and you can see in a horizontal way, this is how the grid line is going to look for you. So take a picture that's not always like, for example, the building could have been in the middle, but they put it on the end, I mean on the left side, so it gives more space and it gives more white space so that the picture breathes more. The next one is finding symmetry. So this is a good example, simple, and it works. The camera is positioned slightly to the left, but it creates symmetry in the middle. You can look at that article later. We're just gonna go through it really fast. The next one, number 3, is crop instead of zooming. So when you zoom, the picture becomes really pixelated, especially if you're just using it with your phone. Even if you have the latest iPhone, it basically still would become pixelated if you're really taking an object from far and just zooming in and then having to crop, rather than leave it there and then crop later, because it still remains and looks well. The next one is embrace natural frames. I do this a lot when I'm on the plane to create stories with, hey, this is my window seat. And what am I looking at today? I don't have to talk about my plane ride. I talk about vision. I talk about perspective. I talk about endurance. I talk about health. What do you do when you're out there on the plane with 100 other people that don't have the same hygiene as you do? You know, there are just different things that you can do to engage people in your stories. This is not a newsletter per se, but it's a good way to create pictures. The next one is look for reflections. Instead of just looking and creating a sunset by looking at it, just see if you can find a reflection of it. Look at something that is different and abstract. And I'm learning the same thing over time. I don't have to take a straight, direct shot at something. I can be creative. The next one after that is shoot repeating frames. These pictures are good for you when you're creating storylines and building your audience. Now, this bicycle thing is obviously not going to be connected to you, but there are different patterns, different angles. What can you do with those? Well, a lot of times you can talk about different angles and different views and perspectives that people have. But it creates a little bit diversity in your page and in your Instagram photos. So the next one is get a tripod and mount for your actual mobile device. So I don't always carry something for me to be holding the iPhone with, although this is exactly what they're explaining there. There's little stands that you can carry. I just don't have that kind of space. But sometimes you can put the phone somewhere that's safe and secure, and you can shoot a video without having to hold it. So just create some props around if you don't have a stand. And if you do, and if you want to get one, they're pretty inexpensive on Amazon. Just type in iPhone stands for video recording, and it will pop up with a whole bunch of research for that. Creating new perspective, number 8. You know, this is just a funny picture, but you can do a lot of things. You can not always have to just shoot the picture straight. It's good to include something. I would not recommend legs, but that's what their object here was. So the next one is take candids. As you can see, this is giving you a little grid of pictures of people who are not posing into the camera. And this has become a new trend, especially in the last several years, where even people that are posing for their own account are posing without looking at the camera, or they're looking off the camera, or they're looking like they're doing something. So when somebody is taking pictures of you, make sure they're not always a posing picture. Let it have dynamics within the picture. And then I believe that was the last one, or number 10, something abstract. And you don't have to take abstract pictures. There's plenty of photos online that you actually could utilize. And I believe this is it on that. Funny. Yes, you can include some funny aspects and funny pictures. People don't always have to see you serious, but stay within the content of what the message is. And then don't be conventional. Obviously, I'm never gonna jump off a cliff. I can't even swim. So that would not be me with a picture like that. But if I'm talking about risk taking, I can go online and find a picture like this or similar and talk about risk taking and jumping off the cliff and making the first step. So those are just fun ways of presenting a message. So let's switch for a minute into my screen. And I'm gonna share all right. So we're going to go into my constant contact. And constant contact is a program that you can use depending on how many contacts you have. We have several different accounts because the moment you exceed certain amount of number, it goes higher. MailChimp is another account that can be used, but I use this one because we have created this for the ministry and for the partners letters and for the newsletters. And here is how the account basically shows what kind of open rate you have had, how many percentage of clicks, and how many opens. So on some I have 21%, on others I have 57, on others I've had 30. I contacted Constant Contact to ask them about this because I thought that this is such a low number. I wanted 100% opens and 90% opens. And they were like, actually, you have really high opening rate because most newsletters and letters that are sent by mail, the opening rate is about to 10% tops. So when you exceed over 21 or 57, 30, you're actually doing pretty well. So not to get discouraged. Now, with that in mind, I'm not going to I want to improve. Like, why is one 30, another one is 29, another one is 21? This is my newest one. It's going to be resent again. So to those who haven't opened it, as a reminder. So let's look at the newsletter, and you'll see it's pretty easy to create. But this is how it would look on the screen. So before you even send it out, you're gonna make sure that you check and find out if every link is working, if everything is working well. And this is how the regular email newsletter looks. We try to create it as similar as possible to our mailing letter so that it stays consistent. And I always send it to myself as a test email. So I can always send it from here to connect and check these links out. The reason I'm showing you that particular one, and then we're gonna go back into the newsletters. Since I'm not there, I can't really see with show of hands who is using Constant Contact and who isn't. But this is how our partners newsletter looks like. Once it's sent out, it doesn't give me an option to correct it, but we have the letterhead on top and just the information with a few updates, and then the letterhead on the bottom. And every month is the same letterhead, and it just stays consistent. You will see on mobile device how it's gonna look like. So if something is off, to make sure to correct it. This signature, for some reason, it just still stays huge and it doesn't want to adjust. These programs have limitations, and I've just learned how to work with them without getting over frustrated. So on my newsletter, it shows that here we have desktop openings are higher than mobile openings. So that tells me that a lot of the people that are opening it are probably older people, and they're not familiar with how to do it on their phone, to check their emails and constantly looking at from there. The same time, the email link is given to me, and I can take this link, copy it, and paste it onto our Facebook page. So I'll open, for example, our Facebook. And then it takes a minute to get onto my page. And here is the one from a day ago. So instead of posting the link here within the text, because it got taken down for thinking that it's spam, I posted it right here in the first comment. And then it shows up immediately here. So when you're creating something, in order for it to be seen, it's good to also include it in your stories. And the stories are located here. At the moment, I don't have a story, so it's gonna show up with my wedding picture. But if you're wanting to add a story, especially from your phone, that is the easiest way to do it, is add a story, and it will show up here. So when people are looking at it, when you're going onto your home page, you'll see all kinds of weird people on here. And some are better and more mature in the way they act, and others are just people that follow me. But you can select a story, and when you open it, that's how the story is gonna look like. This is a girl that is a friend of mine. She's a model. She was actually at my wedding, but she has 30,000 followers. So her niche is modeling. So she's always trying to appeal to the younger audience, and all of her stories are going to be connected to something that she's doing. I have another friend here. She's in ministry, but at the moment, maybe they've opened something or she's doing something, so she posted a story about it. A lot of people use this for various things. I do it for ministry purposes. And to create a story that's connected to my ministry and organization. So here you will find share. When you click on share, is going to be able to share it on a page, share it into a friend's timeline, in the group, in a message, share now. When you're doing it on your phone, is going to give you the opportunity to share it on your Facebook story. I'm not sure, I never really use it from here to create a story. So for those of you who haven't done it or have done it, the easiest way is really from your phone. And the same thing would apply for Instagram. I'm going to move over to Invisible Mentors account for just a moment. This is our Instagram account, and the stories are also located right here where your profile is. This is your grid and your post. So the difference between Facebook and Instagram is that Instagram is driven by pictures. Over here, a picture with text or a picture with a lot of additional pictures on it does not cause for your message not to be seen. Where in Facebook, when you have a lot of text on top of the pictures, for some reason, Facebook thinks that it's too much and they begin to hide the content. And so it's best to post pictures with the least amount of text on them so that it's recognized through the search engine better. So like, this is our ministry page, so I'm still working on it to kind of get the likes up and going, but I include different variations, and I'm trying to stick right now with the theme of certain colors. So we are trying to match it in a way that it looks presentable and that all of the content stays consistent. So right now, I would be doing new content here with a little bit lighter background and a fun text so that I can tell them what we're about. And then I talk about our newsletter here. The link here is not clickable, so you either have to include it in a separate message to them or include it as a live link in your story if you have a lot of followers. If you don't have a lot of followers, private messaging to the people, the link is probably the best way to do it, because it just doesn't allow you to tag the link on top. With IGTV, oh, one important thing, if you have followers and you're not engaging them, which we're going to talk about engagement in a little bit, in a lot of information of how they're thinking, what are they involved in, you're not going to have a lot of engagement on the post. In order for a post to start trending, it has to have at least somebody commenting on it more than 5 words. That's for Instagram. So if I have several people in my organization that I want to involve in following me, I have been telling them, can you please go on my post, like it, and comment with at least 5 words. Otherwise, it just doesn't do any good for somebody to put a little heart on it. That's for Instagram, and then just move on from the post. It still doesn't do any algorithm favors to your post. IGTV. Here is my IGTV stories. These are things that I have done that are longer and they can be played in IGTV. So they're connected to my post, but they're also connected on top here. You will see It's so hard actually for me to look at the computer screen and tell you about IGTV because on the phone is so much easier. If you have an account on Instagram, I want you to open it for just a minute and go to the home page, which the home page is this little guy here. It's a house. And then once you're there, you're gonna see this little mouse here. And this is where your private messages are. So you can schedule automated responses to your messages depending on who is contacting you. You can schedule them if your account is connected to Facebook and Instagram together. We're gonna watch a video on how to connect it together in a little bit. But this is for people who don't have a lot of time and the messages are connected to something that is of importance to the audience, and you basically create the message for that day and it automatically will start sending it out. The next one that you will see is your grid, which if you go onto your own page, and you see the little grid on top, this is where your posts are. This is your saved ones. This is people who have tagged you. I tag myself in certain posts and other people have tagged me in theirs. And so that's where you're tagged. When you're tagged by somebody, you actually can share it from here, direct share it on Facebook, on Messenger, on Twitter, and you can share it on Storyline. When you're on the computer, it just doesn't give you the ability to share it from there. So when you're on the actual post, if you want to share it on your Storyline, you just click on that little arrow and it will give you the opportunity to go there. It would say add post to your story. And when you click add post to your story, you want to tag, if you're using your organization name or somebody within the post, you want to tag that person into it. And you tag them by putting at, and then you write out the name and then they pop up. So when you're adding somebody into your story, the difference is between tagging them here and tagging them into the story is people love sharing stories, and they immediately can take the tag and reshare it onto somebody, onto their own storyline. And they can say, thank you so much, or they can say, this is amazing. Like, for example, if Jennifer is posting on the WIN website or on Bishop's website for the new book, and she tags me into the story for the book, I can immediately go and with that little arrow, move it over to my story and tag more people and say, hey, check out this great book. And so it creates more viewing and more people being able to click directly on the post. The post is going to lead them directly to the account that Bishop has, not to my post. So that's why posts that you have written, if you want people to read them, but they have not been connected to the story, it's the best way to do it is to say, hey, check out my new post. Here is, for example, a post that I have done for our new book. And those posts were connected as links over to my site and my regular posts. So when they go on there, they could have clicked. When the post is now old, is not going to do the same thing, but on that same day, they can click on it and they can read the information. This was just encouragement, and I have done different stories for different things, and I have categorized them on the top. So right here are all my different categories, and you can create endless ones with your stories. So if I want to promote the e-course, then that's the story about that part, and everything is underneath it. You can go back to all stories. Everything stays inside of your Instagram. And when you create a new little tag to it, you can add the right story into that area and create your course. So when you're on your phone, it will give you an opportunity. It will say new on the front right here. And when it says new, that's where you click on it. It takes you to the next page of which post you want to include as a part of it. And then when you select them, it will either ask you to connect them to suggested highlights that you already have, or if you select it and you click next on it, it will give you an opportunity to create a brand new cover and a brand new storyline. Is everybody able to follow me on this so far? Without the phone, I can't do it on the screen on the computer. But it's really not that complicated. It's pretty self-explanatory. This is the new, and then you can change when you click on the story. If you don't want the edit cover to be the top picture that you have selected, you can click edit cover, and you can basically put any picture that you desire. And then on the highlight text, you will be able to put what that highlight is about. Is it about a book? Is it about merchandise? Is it about t-shirts? Is it about travel? Is it about evangelism? So you connect it on there. On this one, I'm not connecting anything at the moment, but I will show you here on this post. If you're looking at it, I'm gonna take this down. So if I click right here on the little arrow button, it will take me to add to your story. And you see how it looks. So right here, I can start typing a text, and I can put at, and then I can put Bishop, or I think you're under LaDonna.
There's a Dr. LaDonna, and there's
It automatically pulls up your picture on the very bottom. So I can click on it and it would say Dr. LaDonna. Well, that obviously doesn't look good right smack in the middle of the picture, right? So you can change the color of how this is going to look like by just clicking either one of these on the bottom, or you could look at that little guy on the very front, and that's your drop pin of where you want it to go and which color you want it to be if it's wanting it to match the picture. So let's just say I want it to match brown. So I drop it there over the brown part of the picture, and then I click done, and then I take my finger and I move slightly Dr. LaDonna, and then I squeeze it, and then it becomes little. And then I move the picture back and center it. So if I'm connecting Bishop into the post, I want to write something about it. What is this post about? So I can go back to the text and I can type something in. If I don't want anything to be typed, you will see on the very bottom, there is one arrow pointing down, there is a clip, and then there is a half a smiley in a square. If you click on the half a smiley in the square, you're gonna see all kinds of things pop up onto the screen. And if you just type in the search button what exactly you're wanting to do, if you're wanting to do a hashtag, if you're wanting to do a, hey, send a donation, and their organization is registered on Instagram, then it will pull up their organization immediately. If I just want to put new post, I type new post and it pulls up a whole bunch of different emojis and ideas of how to put the post on there. So let's just say I select new post. Always when you select it, it's going to end up pulling it up right in the middle. So you want to adjust it with your finger, slightly move it on top to the side. And then if you want to make it smaller, you just squeeze it a little bit with your fingers, and then it moves. Everything is movable, So before you click send for the whole story to be seen, make sure it's adjusted and it looks good to you. So if this doesn't look good to me and Bishop's name is on the top, then I want to move it on the bottom and I want to put it right there. Now, if I want to add a little hashtag and say hashtag win, I'll select the hashtag button. When you go back to the same emoji that I was in earlier, and then I will put win on into it. So it's gonna look like this. And then when that is done, you put win on the bottom. And now it has a hashtag and an actual name connected to it. So immediately when I send it as a sent message, and the direct message will pop up on her tagged area, and she will see that I have tagged her. At that point, she can reshare my post onto her storyline so that more people can see it. Is everybody doing good? Questions so far? I can't really see everyone on the screen, so I'm hoping you guys are following me.
You're introducing a lot of really new ideas to me about Instagram. I post occasionally on the Dr. LaDonna, but Jennifer posts consistently on the Osborne Ministries page. So she's more familiar with it and is doing some things, but still, you're talking about some things we've never discussed. I don't know that we're doing it in any area.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to find out how to automate the messages so that we're not like wasting hours upon hours messaging everybody under the sky. So if you don't want to post it, just click out of the exit button and go discard. If you decide to keep it and post it and you click send, it's going to go automatically on your wall, on your storyline. So,
I have a question. In all of your research, you have done more than any one person that I know in this whole design and image presentation context. I am wondering, have you stumbled upon anything that addresses like the color and the look, some of these graphics, these splash, like paint splashes, some of these things? How do we balance a classic look that stays up to date and a faddish look that always is just it's always just new? What gives the best impression for an old ministry like ours?
Yes, so we're actually going there, Bishop, in just a minute after I'm done with the Instagram.
Okay.
So I want to show you guys how to do grids and how to color coordinate them, and there is a specific app for that. And once you discover the Canva app and the grid app, it makes your life so much easier in color coordination and sticking to the brand. So definitely very important question, because I want to show you before I exit out of Instagram, a person that I have followed. She's a Christian and she has a course that I'm going to actually share from her experiences, but her name is Jasmine Star. And if you just type it into your research button on the top, this is her page. She's got 376,000 followers. She is a business strategist and she is a pro at social media. So I have been taking her class for the last year. So every month she sends videos, tutorials, information, all kinds of stuff with Instagram captions and pictures and everything else. So this is how she has her story organized. And when you click here, see, when you click on the picture on your phone, it's going to play her story because I just looked at it and she has one. Computer is really limited for Instagram. I would not recommend using it for you to be posting anything on Instagram. Always post through your phone. But this is her grid. And see, she sticks to light colors. She's a photographer, and most of her pictures, although they may have her face on it, they may include a few different things here and there, but they're all staying color coordinated. And she's chosen to have the bright, vivid colors for filters, which creates the same look on all the pictures, even if they're taken at different times of the day. So she's a good person to just kind of follow for ideas and matches and colors, because she stays on top of trends. My Instagram on this one is an open account. My personal account is closed because I'm still working on removing messages and things that I don't think are important for people to know. So I have not opened it, but see, like my personal account is going to have me and Mark and our trip after the wedding and a few more personal pictures that I'm not going to post on all the other media channels, because that's just for me personally. My personal account also has a lot more views than our ministry account, because people are so used to following me. They think they're going to miss out on something if I post on a different account. They don't know that I am the one posting. So they assume if the other account has a different name that they're going to miss out. So they will rather come to this post here and look at it and have more interaction and more likes than my other posts on the other account. And so I have several accounts. Actually, I have another one for Metro Bulgaria. And then I have several Twitter accounts as well. So I've separated the accounts in different, for the different ministries that I am operating. Kind of like Pastor Shai having all these accounts. So let's switch gears here and let me show you how to use a great app that I like, and that is called Canva. How many of you use the app Canva? Any show of hands with the little finger marks? Okay, so if you haven't used Canva, I need you to download it onto your phone. And you're gonna go to your app store. And from the app store, you're going to type Canva. C-A-N-V-A. And you're gonna type search. And it's going to automatically pop up and say Canva graphic design. It's gonna look like this. So I'm gonna give you guys a minute to set up an account, and it's free. So you will need to register your account with your name and email address. And nobody will have your email. They don't send me promotions or anything like that. This is just an account just like you're opening for Facebook. You can have a paid Canva. I don't do that because I really don't need to. The paid Canva has additional graphics and additional access to pictures. But in your handouts, I have provided you with several websites that have free downloads of pictures. And one of them is called Unsplash, unsplash.com. If you're looking for good quality pictures, they have thousands of them. But the good news about Canva is that within the actual Canva templates, they also come with 10,000 pictures or more, depending on what you're searching for. So if you can just give me thumbs up when you are ready with your setup of your account. You can also do that on your computer if you would like, but you're not going to be able to see my screen if you open your screen. So for those of you who are operating just from one device, then if it's just the computer and you don't have a phone, or if it's the phone and you don't have a computer, then I believe you can still hear me if you click out of the actual Zoom and just go into the app, download it, and then open an account.